Over the last several months, I have slowly but surely been getting pieces off of this manure spreader and trying to sort of refurbish them, paint them up, and get this thing back into working order. I'm mostly targeting just the pieces that move or the pieces that have some sort of a mechanical function. And I think that I've pretty much gotten everything on this side done. The other side of the spreader doesn't have quite as much going on, so I think once I get this side put back together, that I might be able to roll this thing out in the yard and just sort of see if everything works and what else might be seized up on it. But first, we got to put all these parts back on, and that's really my main goal for today, and that's what we're doing on Farmer Tyler Ranch. It's been so long since I've taken this apart that I might have to go back and watch that video to figure out how it all goes back together. But if memory serves me, and just sort of looking at this kind of how it has to go back, the first thing that I need to reinstall is the cover that goes over these rollers here. I learned when I was taking this apart that these rollers make the beaters back here give it sort of an extra flip, which I guess is necessary. So we got this all cleaned up. We got the rollers moving again, which it doesn't look like they've moved in many years because they have some flat spots on them. They should move now. So let's get this cover on, and then we can get all the bearings and sprockets back on this side and get the chain cut, and yeah, just keep on going. I have to admit that I couldn't quite wait on some of these parts, and I have reinstalled them already. It's nothing that's really major or very significant to this, but you will notice that there are some freshly painted parts on here, and that's why. They've conveniently labeled this cover top, so we cannot forget which way it goes. So I'm going a little bit off script here. Originally, these were carriage bolts around the edge here, but I'm just going to use some standard bolts. I don't think it's going to really matter in this case. I guess carriage bolts would have looked a little bit nicer, but the ones that I took off, they got damaged a little bit during removal, and I don't have any, and I don't really want to go to the store and get more. So this is what we're going to go with.
Seems awful loose.
Now that everything is more or less hooked back up on this side of the spreader, I can't help myself. I gotta hook it up to the side-by-side and take it for a little test. Well, obviously the first test was a fail, but the good news is I think I figured out what the issue is. You guys saw me kick this lever into the engage position, and there's actually a notch down here that kind of locks it in place. When you put this engagement lever in the engaged position, what it does through a series of levers and linkages is it lowers this drive chain down onto a drive sprocket, which once it catches and engages there, it in turn turns everything else. Now, I'm not sure how clear it's going to be on camera, but with that chain guide in the engaged position, it's still holding that chain up kind of high, and it's allowing the teeth on the sprocket to just sort of jump the chain rather than engage with it and turn it. So I think what needs to happen is this engagement lever needs to throw a little bit further, and that will in turn drop the chain down a little bit more, and it should help the teeth on the sprocket engage. This rod here that connects the lever to the chain guide down there has a threaded end here. So at one time it was adjustable, but now there's either too much paint or too much rust here. I can't see any more threads. We might be bottomed out as well. So at any rate, I think this rod, if it was a little bit shorter, this would solve all of my problems. I'm going to build a new rod with adjustment on both ends. Something like this definitely begs the question, why now? Why, since this thing was built in what I'm thinking is the 40s, was this never an issue before? And I really don't have the answer for that, other than it is so old that I really don't know what has happened to this thing in its life. For all I know, this is not the factory rod. Maybe somebody put a new rod on here already and it's a little bit too long. Maybe there's some other adjustment here that is out of adjustment. I guess the quick fix here is to build a new shorter rod and run it like that, and then if there's another critical issue that I'm not catching right now, then I guess it'll show itself. So I've got some 1/2 inch cold rolled round stock here. All I'm going to need to do is cut a fine 1/2 inch thread on either end of this thing, and it should bolt right on. Okay, we need a 1/2 20 right there. So we'll go jam. That's got way better tooth engagement now, and I think I'm ready to take this thing for another test. The only thing that I'm not too sure about is this little guide here. It doesn't fit anymore for a couple of reasons. One, since I've got like a yoke on this end now instead of just that bent rod, it actually relocates this rod out a little bit. So what that means is that the bolt holes for this plate no longer line up. I'm not sure how necessary this is though, because as this rod moves back and forth, it also moves up and down. So this might have kind of been binding it a little bit. We've got 1/2 inch rod here. I really don't see bending that. But if I do, I guess I know how to make a new one. Well, the new engagement rod really seemed to do the trick with this thing. I didn't have any trouble getting it to engage, so that's awesome. Now, that motivates me because we know that everything works. I'm not so sure that if I didn't put a bucket of manure in this thing right now, that it wouldn't just spread it no problem. The only issue is that I haven't done anything with the bearings or any of the moving parts on the other side of the spreader. So far, I've only focused my effort on this side. I don't want to actually put a load on it until I've gone through everything. So that's gonna be the next thing that I need to get done, but this is an awesome sign. This thing's gonna live again. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys, and I hope I'll see you again on Farmer Tyler Ranch.